Roughly 500 in every 1 million people who exercise will die from a sudden cardiac event. That's about 1 in 2,000. Maybe that's not a fun fact.
Yeah, buddy. Lightweight, baby!
What's up, guys? I'm Josh and I lift things. I'm here to talk about lifting. Is it bad for your spine? This is an extremely common brought up question by beginners, or one that's sometimes even used to fearmonger people out of lifting. Now, I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass to pretend that lifting is risk-free. Injuries happen, most of which are easily recoverable from, but kind of a fun fact, roughly 500 in every 1 million people who exercise will die from a sudden cardiac event. That's about 1 in 2,000. Maybe that's not a fun fact. Now, let's get some definitions out of the way. A back injury is not a spine injury. It's like squares and rectangles. Yes, every spine injury is a back injury. Well, I guess some could be considered a neck injury. But not every back injury is a spine injury. Now, for those that eat crayons and drywall for breakfast, the spine is the bony thing in your back. Obviously, you could tweak your lower back and have that not be a spine issue. People commonly bring up this issue to say that lifting can stunt your growth, but please see my video on that to figure out why that is bullshit. Now here we have an article from Pain Science, a great website. I highly recommend looking into them for more realistic approaches to fixing pain and injuries. And here we have the article, "Don't worry about lifting technique. The importance of lift with your legs, not your back, to prevent back pain and injury has been exaggerated." So here they have a 2008 review, the effect of training and lifting equipment for preventing back pain and lifting and handling. One of the important quotes is, "There's no evidence to support use of advice of training and lifting techniques for preventing back pain or consequent disability. Findings challenge current widespread practice of advising workers on correct lifting technique." And I really like their writing style. Your back isn't fragile, unless it literally is. Osteoporosis is different. Very true. The flexion fear that is so common and silly with regards to healthy people is probably justified for the specific population. Like a stopped clock that's correct twice a day, sometimes it does make sense to be cautious with flexion. But that which is risky is also by far the best treatment. The flexion exercises that are riskier for these people are also the only realistic hope for recovery. They just have to be done much more slowly and cautiously, in proportion to the severity of the osteoporosis. The babyest of baby steps. Here they call someone out directly. If lifting heavy things at work leads to back pain, that would make more sense to be careful about how you do it. As much as I appreciate their conclusions, Martimo et al. Begin their paper with a whopper of another unjustified assumption. In the first sentence, heavy lifting at work increases the risk of back pain. If that assumption isn't correct, the entire discussion is a moot point, right? And yet the authors support it with only a single reference to a 1999 paper published in an obscure journal, the International Journal of Industrial Ergonomics, and that paper supports nothing of the kind. It does not show that heavy lifting increases the risk of back pain. It's a bogus citation, and I am not making this up. Much more recently, a 2010 review concluded it's unlikely that lifting was a cause of back pain in workers. A 2012 review found little to no evidence for any connection between back pain, stooping over repeatedly for long periods, and a different angle on the same problem. Not enough reviews for you? Okay, 2011 review of 8 reviews did not support the conventional wisdom either. Now, obviously, most of this focuses on workers, because that's where a lot of the studies of lower back pain comes from. People that, say, work in a warehouse and have to pick up boxes all day. Again, pain is confusing, and I plan to do a video on this entire topic at some point in the future, but it's a lot of stuff to sift through, and it's very, very complicated. But it turns out a lot of it may be in your mind. Here we have a Stronger by Science article. Fucking love them. Check them out. Should you fear lumbar flexion? This here will be lifting with a flexed spine. They go into the anatomy of it all, and here they explain basic spinal motion. So here you have flexion and extension, left-right side bending, and then left and right rotation. So this is a very important question to ask. What is neutral? There are many terms that are often utilized in our field without a second thought. Neutral spine is probably one of the most in use of these words. Should you ask a range of professionals to define neutral spine and explain why it matters, you'd likely receive a range of answers. This lack of consistent terminology between clinicians, researchers, and the public leaves room for miscommunication and greater error in information sharing. So what makes the flexion have an increased risk? In Wade et al. 2014, the group compared 4 situations: neutral spine and low rate compression, flexed spine and low rate compression, neutral and high rate, and flexed and high rate. In both conditions of low rate, the end plates fractured without the discs failing, and the magnitude of compression necessary to cause a fracture was not found to be statistically significant between the neutral and flexion. In contrast, when compression rate increased, an interesting phenomenon was observed. Similar to low rate, when high rates of compression were applied, there was not a statistically significant difference in compression load between the spinal postures to induce an end plate fracture. However, while the neutral spine disc segments also all failed due to end plate fracture in both settings, the flexed spine showed diverging characteristics based on the loading rate. When high rate was introduced, 50% of the segments had wall failure and subsequent disc herniation. The load required for failure with disc herniation was lower than that of end plate fracture. This demonstrates lumbar flexion when combined with high compression as having an elevated risk over neutral. Here's a very interesting point on genetics. Batty et al. Compared 45 pairs of twins with different driving exposure, one doing a significant amount, 5.4 times the average more driving, and one not. Although some would consider driving a risk factor for disc herniation due to the commonly flexed posture and whole body vibration exposure, the researchers did not find driving exposure to be associated with lumbar degeneration, disc signal intensity, or any other abnormalities. Specifically, disc degeneration did not differ between twins, except in the case of the lower lumbar spine, where non-drivers actually had more frequent herniation than the drivers. Interestingly, it was more likely that if one twin reported lower back pain, the other would as well. The frequency of lower back pain between twin groups was nearly identical. Now, clearly, the science and the biomechanics explaining forces that are put on your spine is confusing, as is the very science of pain itself. What we do know is that spinal injuries in powerlifting, a sport literally revolving around pulling as much weight as possible, is extremely rare. Not only is lifting great for literal bone health, but also for soft tissue integrity. We have the effects of resistance exercise on bone health and countless other studies. I'm not even going to bother reading through this one. Now, once again, little disclaimer, I'm not a fucking doctor, and this is not me saying that lifting weights is risk-free. Ego lifting with shit form on a heavy compound movement is dangerous. Will it be life-threatening? Chances are no. But I hurt my back extremely bad over a decade ago, and I am still dealing with it to this day. Be smarter than me, and exercising will keep you extremely, extremely healthy throughout the majority of your life. Lifting is not inherently bad for your spine. And guys, that is the video. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I don't care. Follow all these socials. You can find the links down in the description. I post exclusive content there occasionally. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.